Good morning and welcome to Kusile Breakfast Show. Kusile namhlanje ikhethe kuvuka nathi malenge lamahle sithama usinphilile la khona simakho nje umdala ukuthi usiphephisile sathi sabona langa la namuhla disiphohlongo ke enyangeni yenhlaba umnyaka ngo2023 nivuselako ngolungelele amakagula nasifiso nqoma lo mngoni kunjani nomhlekiseni.
Doing very well Thomben kunjani?
Siphilile sifiso sibongile nje ukuthi sivukile sesilapha futhi namhla.
Sivuka kahle nathi. I don't know what is going on. Angathi kwendekani. Today feels like a Friday to me.
Yeah.
It just feels like a Friday. But anyway, it's a very good Thursday morning. Indeed, my temperatures are like 15 degrees Celsius. The highest temperature is expected to be at 26 degrees. December is naba labakhala namakhada kakhulu. Namuhla ngeke basibangela umsindo kakhulu njengoba nje kungekho makhada njengendlela aledayelekile. Today on the program, sijoinwa ngiboke Industrial Development Company of Eswatini. They are back for their 5th installment with Kusile Breakfast Show. Namhla ke sidawuphinza kubuye Xolani Mkhabela lo projects appraiser officer khona ka IDCE. Tabe nje asi unpackela nge-IDCE product noma ke asesithi agricultural loans. Tabasitshela kabanti ngayo ekutheni ingani ukuthi ke ngumaphi ama crops laba finance ako, as well as if they fund ama projects allocated kuSwazi Nation land. Siyafuna ke ukuva ukuthi nangabe umuntu uthi yena ufuna kulima ku family land, does IDCE fund that particular person? What would be required from that person? What security IDC requires for this loan, as well as the most basic requirements for the IDCE agricultural loan product?
Azike ngahapho 6 namhlakuseni sidaba esijoyine ngo-CEO we-Inyathi Group Derek Shiba dokhuluma kabanti njenge Inyathis dominance across the African continent. Azike ku-expanda esifundzeni se-Africa licebo lenkampani ukuthi libe ingcenye nje imakethe letinsha futhi ke u-expanda kwe-Inyathi Group kunyusa linani lemakhasimende lenkampani lokuyinfolenda ukuthi lenkampani yakhe ema-profits lasetulu kakhulu. Inyathi Construction ke isemaveni i-operator maveni langu 11 lapha eAfrica lokufaka eKatlivile Eswatini laseMozambique, South Africa, eMalawi nalamanye emave. It has recently been awarded 2 contracts for major infrastructure development projects even lase-Uganda kanye naseveni lase-Somaliland in the past few weeks. Sidabeke sikhulumisana naye CEO Derek Shiba. Siphinze ke sikhulumisane na-project coordinator ka-TV License Consortium Phumelele Dlamini tokhuluma kabanti nge-exercise lensha lesebayicalile lebitwa ngokuthi you know your customer exercise lapho ke bashayela khona abantu bafune imininingwane yabo kodwa bato khona ku-update i-database yabo. So sidabe sinabo bonke labo naphela dona tindzaba tensimbi yesithupa lomhlekiseni.
Yes, Margaret masibuya sithatha tindzaba talapha event.
Umsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV utibophelele kuhlonipha nekulandzela umgomo wetekusakata loweluswe libandla letekuchumana eveni.
Ngephansi kwalomgomo sitimisele kusakata tindzaba letiya ngaleso sikhathi tindzaba letide magama laqosheme letitsembekile letitsinza tonke tinhlangothi naletisebaleni
kusukela kutepolitiki, tetemphilo, tekulima, tetinkantolo netemhlaba wonke jikelele. Siniletsela tindzaba njengoba tinjalo ngaleso sikhathi letenteka ngaso.
Kanzi kulomsakato siphinze sikulethele lonke luhlobo lwetemidlalo kusuka emidlalweni welibhola letinyawo kuye emidlalweni ledlalelwa ematafuleni kanye naleto letiqhamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Leti tindzaba loutiletselwa ngumsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV.
Imizuzu lesihlanu kubumbene insimbi yesithupha lomhla ekuseni ake sithathe itindzaba lapha eveni. Umhlonishwa Mvunankulu Cleopas Dlamini usuke kuleli esukwini la iTolo walibhekisa eveni leZambia lapho ayomelela khona silo semhlaba enkosi Mswati wesithathu emhlanganweni wenhlangano yetekuthengiselana emave ke lasempumalanga naseningizimu neAfrika iComesa. Mvunankulu ukubhekeke ukuthi yaphinze ayomelela eNgwenyama emhlanganweni wenhlangano yakamhlaba yetisebenti International Labour Organization letawubanjelwa ke edolobheni leGeneva.
Lomhlangano eveni leZambia okaComesa kubheke ukuthi ungenelwe abantu labendlula kwetinkulungwane letinzathu labavela ke emaveni lange-21 langemalunga enhlangano yakaComesa. Sicubulo ke salomhlangano sitabe sigcile kakhulu endzabeni tekuthuthukisa umnotho wakhe emave yakaComesa kuphinze ke kunakwe kuhlanyelwa kwetimali etinhlelweni tekuthuthukisa umnotho ngendlela lenganyukubeti imvelo. Kanti ke itawunakwa nendzaba yokuthuthukisa luhlangothi lwetekuvakasha kulamave akaComesa.
Kulo mhlangano kuyawubuka ukuthi emave ala eAfrika kulesikhathi angabambisana emabhizinisi emva kokuba kusho ukuthi kutawubuka ukuthi tekuvakashelana tekuthengiselana yini lengempilo ukuthi osomabhizinisi bahambane. Lo mhlangano utawuqala nge-business forum kusho ukuthi kuyabe kuhlangene khona bohulumende bahlangene nabosomabhizinisi sethemba nje nabosomabhizinisi batabe bakhona le.
Asike Mvunankulu tasinakaceza lo mhlangano loyo aphinza asase futhi indizamshini alibhekise eGeneva eveni leSwitzerland lapho kayawungenela khona umhlangano welikhulu ne-11 wenhlangano yaka-ILO i-International Labour Organization Conference umhlangano ke wes-111 kulo umhlangano ke kuyawutekwa indzaba 3070
lo mhlangano umhlangano lapha bohulumende ebisebenzi nebaqashi kuyahlangana konke kubuke ukuthi indzawo yokusebenza work environment ingalungiseka kanjani ukuze kube khona ukuphatheka kahle kwalabo abasebenzayo abantu khona ukuphicika.
Lo mhlangano njengoba ke ucale mhla tisihlanu kulesetulu njengoba kucale kube nemabandla ngemabandla ngaphambi kwekuthi ke kube ngulomhlangano lomkhulu lapho khona Mvunankulu atafike kamelele khona silo semhlaba useke nakawuvula Director General Haiko wachaza ukuthi kude lekumele agoqe tandla kunathi tinsaye letidibene nemave emhlaba etindzabeni tekusungulwa kwemisebenzi. Biko hlanganiswe ngiLinkedIn Gule nginasikhumbuzo Dlamini silapha eKM3.
Mvunankulu Cleopas Dlamini ubeseke uyafika eveni leZambia lapho ayomelela khona silo inkosi Mswati wesithathu emhlanganweni webaholi bemave kanye nabohulumende benhlangano yetekuthengiselana empumalanga naseningizimu neAfrika iComesa.
Mvunankulu Cleopas Dlamini ufikele esikhumulweni setindiza iKenneth Kaunda International Airport ahamba newakakhe lomvula hlophe. Mvunankulu wemukele indvuna lebuke tindzaba temandi nentfutfuko etindzaweni letisemakhaya eveni leZambia Mike Mposha lebekahamba nendvuna itangaphandle nekudlelana nalamanye emave Eswatini Thuli Dladla. Leyena besavela lapha eveni leZambia kutawungenela umhlangano wetindvuna tangaphandle lowendvulele lona lokuchubeka lomuhla webaholi bemave enhlangano yetekuthengiselana empumalanga naseningizimu neAfrika iComesa. Sicubulo salomhlangano sigcile kakhulu ekufukulweni kweminotfo yemave langaphasi kwalenhlangano kusetshenziswa tindlela letinganyukubeti imvelo netekuvakasha. Lokukhulu lesevele kwentekile khona la edolobheni Lusaka ukuthi livele Egypt lebesolo lingusihlalo weComesa selendlulisele ematomu kumengameli Hakainde Hichilema lothatha kumengameli Mohamed Abdul Fattah al-Sisi. Lisekela lasihlalo selivele Burundi kanike livele Madagascar lona likhetfwe njengelunga lelitimele. Kanike emhlanganweni wetindvuna tangaphandle lobanje ngomsombuluko kube sekukhethwa nesigungu lesitawubuka inchubekela phambili yalenhlangano yeComesa. Lesigungu sakhiwa amave lasithupha. Lamava afaka ekhatsi Ethiopia, iKenya, iSudan, iUganda, iSeychelles kanye neMauritius. Livele eMalawi nalo belisiphakamisile sandla kodwa ke lakhala phasi elikhethweni. Lomunye ke umhlangano lobekhona ngilowo wekubuka tindzaba tekuthengiselana iBusiness Forum longenelwe indvuna itemabhizinisi eveni leSwatini Mancoba Khumalo. Kulomhlangano tindvuna tincume kutsi emave akasebentisa imikhicito yawo ngalokuphelele kunekuthi ayitsengisele emave angaphandle ibuye seyinongiwe sekwakhiwe lokho bekungakhiwa kulamave akakhomesa. Tindvuna tiphindze tavumelana kutsi emave langaphasi kwalenhlangano akakhe tindzawo tekubuketa kutsi umkhicito usezingeni lelifanele yini ema-quality assurance centers. Kunginyalo letindzawo titfolakala kumave lamatsatfu kuphela kulawa lange-21 lakha lenhlangano. Emave lanaletinzawo yiNigeria, i-Egypt kanye neKenya. Lilanga lalomuhla likhulu-ke lapha eLusaka njengaloku baholi kufaka ekhatsi yena ndvunankhulu lomelele ingwenyama utawungenela umhlangano lapho khona kutawubukwa emasu ekutfutfukisa tekutsengiselana kulesigungu sakakhomesa. Kubika John Moleleke ngisedolobheni Lusaka eveni leZambia.
Kazike liphini landvunankulu Themba Masuku libonga hulumende welive leTaiwan ngekuba sinini lesimanjalo nelaseswatini ngokulibambisa etinhlangothini letahlukene kutentfutfuko. Masuku bekakhulumana kahlangene namengameli welive leTaiwan Dr. Tsai Ing-wen edolobheni lelikhulu lalapha kulelive ke iTaipei.
Live leTaiwan selibe sinini seleswatini iminyaka lengama-55 njengoba lamave lamabili asayina sivumelwano sebudlelwano ngesikhathi leswatini lithola inkululeko ngeminyaka wa-1968. Liphine landvunankulu umhlonishwa Themba Masuku lithi sekunyenti leswatini lelikuzuzile kulokubambisana kwalamave lamabili njengoba leTaiwan aligcini njengekubambisa leswatini ngetakhiwo kodwa liphindze lithuthukise lwati lwemaswati ngekuwacecesha etinhlangothini letinyenti letifaka ekhatsi lwati lolujulile ngekuvikela kanye nekulwa nekugucugucuka kwesimo selitulu lokuta nemthelela lemibi etimphilweni temaswati. Masuku uthi lokhu sekwente kutsi leSwatini likhone kubhala bhukwana lelitomlandzela lisasebenta tona tindzaba tekugucugucuka kwesimo selitulu. Umhlonishwa Themba Masuku uchubeka uchaza ngaleminye imisebenti yeleswatini leseyithuthukise impilo yemaswati lefaka ekhatsi sakhiwo sakanokusho lesakhiwe esibhedlela sahulumende eMbabane lesesisite kutsi kwehle umthwalo kuletinye tibhedlela letisembabane nasemacentselweni. Uthi nangesikhathi umhlaba uhlaselwe emadima ngomkhuhlane i-COVID-19 live leTaiwan lathumela bodokotela labaselicophelweni lolisetulu laphinze futhi lanikela ngempahla ekuvikela lo mkhuhlane kanye nemishina yekwelapha wona lo mkhuhlane etibhedlela. Liphini landvunankulu lithi kufaka kwageze etindzaweni letisemaphandleni ngekusekelwa ngilo leTaiwan sekonde leSwatini laba kumave lahamba embili eAfrika ngekufinyelelisa geze esiveni njengoba kungumanje liku-85%. Liphini landvunankulu lithi leTaiwan liphindze lifake isandla lesibandi ekulweni nendlala kuleli njengoba liyasiphosa sandla ekunikeleni kudla lokusita labo labeswele njengabogogo nabomkhulu bantwana bendlunkulu kanye nalabakhubatekile. Liphini landvunankulu lichubeka lithi laseSwatini litawuchubeka nekunxusela leTaiwan ukuthi libe lilunga lenhlangano yakamhlabuhlangene kude umhlaba wonke utozuza kulolwati lwalo lolubanti njengoba likhombisile ngesikhathi semkhuhlane i-COVID-19. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Mbongwa Dube kanti titfombe tibuya ehhovisini leliphini landvunankulu.
Indvuna yelitiko letemtsetfo nemtsetfo sekelo Pholile Shakhantu ithi emaswati akangativoteli tigangi nebantfu labangabati. Indvuna ke ithi sive asikhetse bantfu ngemisebenzi yabo. Indvuna ikhulumela okwendlini yetimphunga nakukhulunywa ngemtsetfo losakhankhanywa umtsetfo wekuchibela umtsetfo wekubhalisela lukhetfo.
Indvuna yetemtsetfo netindzaba temtsetfo sisekelo Pholile Shakhantu ithi indlela yekukhetsa yemaswati ibita kutsi loyo naloyo akhetfwe ngemsebenzi yakhe. Indvuna yitse emaswati akahlale akukhumbula loku.
Kukithi thina la emimangweni ukuthi simake sure ukuthi umfu lesingamati walendzawo noma umuntu losigangi asingamncomi sivele sim-object nje kube into no-10 lotawusekela le nomination yakhe. Akufani nje nekusikumba umuntu utawukhethwa majaha esigungwini kuphi athi thina sesitawumelelwa ngumuntu nangu. Lana ukhethwa ngisi sihleti la emangweni phase sihlahla noma eholeni la sikhona khona ngenomination sisho ukuthi sincoma make zibani idzathe zibani simncome siphize sisekele thine singile community. Ngicabanga mengameli ukuthi ngile education nabayenda baka EBC le civic and voter education ukuthi kumele thine simaswati sibabukisise kahle labantu lesabakhetha whether ngochopho uye eParliament sikhethe umuntu lesadiyo ukuthi utawati kwenda lo msebenzi.
Indvuna ivetile ukuthi umtsetfo ukhona kubopha labo labatawephula umtsetfo ngekuthi batsenge emavoti elukhetfweni. Lokhu kubuya kuyo indzaba yokuthi umuntu akangene eParliamente ngemisebenti yakhe, hhayi ngebudze belikhikhi lakhe. Ndzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Themkosi Mavembela nginamuze Mkhonda eParliamente.
Imphunga umfana Nkosi ihlangabeza ithi kungasebenziswa umthetho kulwa nemadvodza kodwa kumane kufundziswane ukuthi bantfu baphilisane kahle kanjani. Imphunga beyikhuluma endlini yetimphunga ngesikhathi kucolwa umthetho losakhankanywa. Umthetho ke wekubhaliswa kwebantfu eveni. Imphunga beyikhala ngekuthi lo mthetho losakhankanywa uvuma ukuthi umntfwana angabhaliswa ngesibongo samake wakhe uma babe wakhe angekho nakubhaliswako.
Kubonakele ukuthi ngenqubo bekwendeka vele umntwana bekafakwa lesibongo seyise. Kodwa ke litiko libukile ukuthi boba beabedi kutobhalisela abantwana. Kuze abantwana batakhona kusatsa lesibongo saboyise. Boba beabakasukume batofaka abantwana babo.
Timbonga tibese tiba nenkulumo mpikiswana ngalendzaba.
Manje bakithi asemane kuphiliswane ngosamkahle nebakithi. Singali nebathi kambe netingane tenu. Akuphilwe nje kuphilwe kahle nebakithi. Itiko nawe lothi mbeni bona thi ukhona lapho kumbe mhlawumbe isinyanisela nakhona. Alingene eredweni kambe lisifundise kahle sincengwe nje ukuthi cha phela nibota no. Awunebakithi. Lothi kepha balonga mthetho nje umntwana amahamba obitwa ngalwana nani.
Yini abayibuda ube ukuthi tengibani baba nomntwana. Athi angathi ngimi kumbe ngibito buya baba. Sathi DNA kube ngiyo ke lesho ukuthi akusimi seyangihlenga. Salumnika ke lesibongo samake. Ngobe ngithi mina bataswela labo make athi umntwana mangedangibita afuna bito ngalosuka kadlamini.
Bantu abami abesiwa lesibhedlela emagama. Ubuya naye lo mfati la ekhaya. Bese siyamethela igama. Sengikhathi ayobhaliswa. Manje ke lana sekunalomthetho losho njena. Kusho ukuthi nizama kwendana empeleni.
Itiko libuke lokho alikagabadisi bo-office. Libuke simo sanamuhla ukuthi sime njani.
Litiko lichazile.
Sizesigcina lapho khona 100% webantu nje. Nabaphuma esibhedlela baphuma babhalisiwe. Sicela lokho nje esiveni ukuthi umntwana angaphuma akabhalisi.
Umthetho losakhankanywa utele kutawulungisa ukuthi kubhaliswa kwebantfu eveni kuhambisane netikhatsi tamanje njengoba umthetho lokhona semdzala kakhulu. Ndzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Themkosi Mavimbela nginambonga Dube eParliamente.
Timphunga tihlabile indzaba yokuthi umuntu losahleti endzaweni tinyanga letisithupha sekangavotelwa elukhethweni. Timphunga tithi umuntu lonjena ngamane avote kuphela. Lokho ke kuvele ngesikhathi indlu yetimphunga ikhuluma ngemthetho losakhankanywa. Umthetho wekuchibela umthetho wekubhalisela lukhetfo.
Sinye setichibelo temtsetfo losakhankanywa wekubhalisela lukhetfo siveta ukuthi umuntu losahleti endzaweni tinyanga letisithupha angalubhalisela lukhetfo kuleyo ndzawo. Ngetulu kwaloko leminye imitsetfo iyamgunyata loyo muntu ukuthi avotelwe.
Zuka kudala ngamvimba khona. Ngale Parliament ngalikhulumisa lonke isibinzani la ngithule ngibhadale nonke. Imali ngingale nkinga.
Nje nami kubeka le concern yalo 6 months ukuthi asikwadi yebo kona umuntu mhlawumbe ukhontinue lenza 6 months sesingavotela ngomdlalo webhola.
Sivulelani imboko silinge abantu batawulingeka vele babonakala bahlala abantu bangemathabela ngoti babuka ukuthi la ngaphuma la angeta aphuma njani kule situation le njengalena angene vele angafanele.
Uyathi nje uthi ukhethile ulungile besingakuvuma ukuthi angavota kuyavakala kepha lokuthi uyakhethwa lo muntu tinyanga letisithupha.
Indvuna iphendvulile.
Asibhalela umthethweni ukuthi vota kepha ungavotela. Kulo mthetho lona mengameli ngoba lona ubuke le voters registration. Lokuthi nawe uyivota ubhalisa njani ukuthi ungene. Lo wekuthi ke sowukhethwa njani ke loyo sowubula bo elections act lokunye kwanza utawutsinza nabo umtsetfosisekelo sekumele ukuthi kubuyelwe kahle etafuleni bamele nehhovisi laka AG lisi advise lokuthi singakwenda njani lokho lokuthi usale ungena kulama lokuthi ma conditions ukuthi awuvotelwa na umuntu lonjani.
Umthetho losakhankanywa sewuchubekele esigabeni selikomiti. Ndzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Themkosi Mavimbela nginamuzi Mkhonda eParliamente.
Indlu yabayesikhulu semkhankasweni wekuchibela imigomo yenchubo yalendlu. Ngekusho kwasihlalo waleli bandla lelibuke kusebenza kwendlu yabayesikhulu Mawik Khumalo. Uthi imigomo leminye semitsala ihambisana nesikhathi sanyalo. Kanti leminye lekumthetho osisekelo welive lefanele ngabe ikhona ayikho kule migomo. Khumalo bekakhuluma emhlanganweni waleli bandla lapho belikuvulekusisa khona le migomo.
Emalunga eParliamente endlu yabayesikhulu lasebandleni lelibuke kusebenza kwalendlu semkhankasweni wekuchibela imigomo yekusebenta kulendlu. Sihlalo waleli bandla Mawik Khumalo uthi ke le migomo itawusita ukuthi lendlu ikhona ekusebenta ngendlela lebhekekile.
Le committee lelisho iconstitution lokho committee le privileges committee. Le committee le privileges committee lihamba litsinze tindzaba tekuba absent kwemalunga eParliament. Kosina ngabe lunga selibe absent isikhathi sesingaka eParliament. Kufuna bese le committee seliya recommend ukuthi lona kusafanele ube lunga leParliament. So ikhona leyo provision in constitution ayikho kuma standing orders. So we needed to establish lelo committee among other things. Two, kunetindzaba letinye lokhanza ukuthi sisebenta njenge House of Assembly. Letindzaba sisebenza ngale indlela. But ngaloko kusesebenza ngale indlela for convenience. But ama standing orders engcenye akhuluma lokhanza ukuthi hayi akasekho kule line lesisebenza ngayo. So konke lokho kufanele sik-align.
Leli bandla naseliqedzile kuchibela le migomo kubheke ukuthi imikiswe endlini kuthi ke iyokhulunyiswa. Etindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni nginathemba Shaba nguyembabane.
PM nga 1 lilangeni litha kanti inzengo yaphalafini yona itokwehla nga 50 cents ilitha. Inzengo yapetrol yona angeke igucuke kule ntsengo lengiyo. Lentsengo lensha itaqala ngensimbi ye-12 ebusuku ngalesine kuleli viki. Kanti ke lentsengo itakwehla ku diesel kanye naphalafini kanti lokwehla kubangwe kuntengantenga kwako kwatoke imarket etangephandle lokwenta ukuthi kubeke nenzuzo lenkulu lokwenta ukuthi ngaleyo ndlela yehle intsengo yalokhu lokubili lokungiphalafini na diesel. Ngakulokunye intsengo yapetrol yona solo inesikhebe esithide lokubangeke ukuthi kuletinyanga letimbili lentsengo imenza wonye kanti ke simo besikhombisa ukuthi kumele yenyuke. Ngenyanga yenkhwekhweti kulomnyaka losetulu intsengo ya oil i-Brent crude oil yehlile ngenxa ke kuntengantenga kwemarket etakamhlaba. Intsengo ya oil yona beyithengisa nga 77.15 kwemali yema-dollar asemelika. Intsengo ya petrol lolu hlata i-unleaded petrol ULP 95 awuchubeka kwanyalo ube ngu-20 emalangeni 80 cents ilitha. Kanti ke intsengo ya diesel 50 ppm yona itokwehla nga 1 lilangeni ilitha usuka ku 21 emalangeni 60 cents ilitha sawutawuba ngu-20 emalangeni 60 cents ilitha. Intsengo ya phalafini itokwehla nga 50 cents lo se kutowenta intsengo yakhe lensha ukuthi isuke ku 15 emalangeni 75 cents ilitha uye ku 15 emalangeni 25 cents ilitha. Litiko ke likhutsata sive ukuthi sisebenzise petrol ngekumonga njengoba ke imarket emhlaba ta oil kanti ke sisindvo selangeni uma siqhathaniswa nelidola lasemalika solwazi siso lesihle. Statement esiphuma kumabhalane lomkhulu etiko letemcebo phansi nemandla Docas Lameni. Bantu labasha besifundza sakamanzini sebaqalile kwetfula imicondvo labanayo ekutfutfukisa emabhizinisi ngaphansi kweluhlelo lwe-MTN 21 Days of Yellow Care. Ngakusho kwalobuketa indzaba letiphatselene nenkampani ethandiwe emashinini. Uthi ke le nkampani batawusekela abantu labasha labangamashumi 21 emabhizinisi latawuba neligalelo ekwakhiweni kwematfuba emisebenzi nemisebenti lenganyukubeti imvelo. Mashinini bekakhuluma ngesikhatsi bantfu labasha betfula emabhizinisi kamanzini.
Bantfu labasha labanemasu ekucala nekukhulisa emabhizinisi sebatifake etfubeni lekuthi-ke basekeleke kute emabhizinisi yinkampani ye-MTN ngaphansi kwehlelo lwe-MTN 21 Days of Yellow Care. Lobuketa inhlelo tale nkampani ethandiwe emashinini uthi-ke bafuna kwesekela emabhizinisi langakhona kutfutfuka.
Sifiseke sing-MTN kudlala elichaza thide during lo 21 days ku-uplifta emabhizinisi lamancane as well as kususa lamanye. Kunemali ke lenganga 210,000 emalangeni lesibeke eceleni sibukeke ukuthi sitawinisa 21 wemabhizinisi.
Lobuketa ekuchumana ka Junior Achievement Siphesihle Mkhonda uthi-ke bantfu labasha banemicondvo lemihle.
Bantfu labasha bethu they have made up their minds, bayati ukuthi bafunani. Bafuna ukuthi batendele kuphila ngala mabhizinisi. Siyati ukuthi imisebenzi ayisesiyole khona leminengi, kodwa ngale opportunity abayiniketwa nge-MTN kulo 21 Days of Yellow Care siyabona ukuthi bantu labasha batawusitakala lesit capital.
Temangweni Zwane longulomunye walabo somabhizinisi labancane uthi-ke badzinga tinkampani nebantfu labatawukholelwa kule micondvo yabo.
It is really all about ukuthi nje ube nomuntu lotokholelwa kuwe nekuthi-ke nawe from lisayidi lakakho ucale lapho ungakhona khona kucala nabakusita vele bakuhlangabeta vele unayo le idea sowuvele soyibekile ukuthi icale isebenze.
Kubheke ukuthi leli thuba lekwetfulwa kwale micondvo lifinyelele kuto tonke tifundza telive. Etindzabeni kubika Sondomlangeni nginaThemba Shabang kaManzini.
Kutemidlalo, mengameli wenhlangano yemidlalo wemabhayisikili kuleli Sifiso Ndwandwe uthi emalungiselelo abo kunginyalo agcile eminyakeni wa-2025 emidlalweni yendlebe yemhlaba yemabhayisikili tobe idlalelwa eveni lase-Rwanda. Ndwandwe uthi-ke kumele live lakangwane limeleleke kahle kule midlalo njengoba-ke itobe idlalelwa khona e-Afrika.
Imidlalo yamabhayisikili kuleli ikhomba kubuya ngemandla selokhu kwanciphene nomkhuhlane we-COVID-19. Le midlalo seyibuyile-ke idlalelwa eTulu. Kanti-ke futhi-ke iphindze-ke idonse nebagibeli labasuka kulamanye emave. Lokho kuyayijabulisa inhlangano yalo mdlalo ukuthi kule miningi yale midlalo seyicalwe-ke kunqotshwa amaswati lekinto lebeyisoloku elikhuni ukuthi endeke eminyakeni endlulile. Mengameli wayo lenhlangano yamabhayisikili Sifiso Ndwandwe uthi lokho kubanika sibinzi ukuthi batokhona kungenela imidlalo ema-World Championships letobe idlalelwa eveni le-Rwanda. Lokutaba-ke kwecala ukuthi live le-Afrika lidlalise imidlalo loluhlobo. Ndwandwe uthi ngeke kulunge ukuthi live bese alisakhona ukuyingenela le midlalo, kungakho-ke babona ukuthi abafake emandla kusalungiselela le midlalo lenjengalena.
I think it's quite a good improvement that we've seen over the last couple of years, but in my opinion, we still have a long way to go to be where we eventually want to be as just the cycling community in the country, and it calls for improvements across the broad spectrum, from how we manage the sport to how we prepare our athletes, to how we prepare our coaches, the coach and also establishing solid partnerships with various stakeholders to ensure that we have the resources to improve the sport. Because I'll make an example. We see in 2025, World Road Cycling Championships are coming to Africa. They will be in Rwanda. So we need to, as a cycling community, to have a clear plan starting from now. We'll see how do we get to Rwanda, not just to show face, but to also compete, make a solid representation of the sport in Eswatini in that space. Because it would be, for me, my opinion, it would be criminal even for us to miss World Cycling Championships.
Lenhlangano ithi imisele nekuchubeka nekubamba imidlalo lesezingeni lelisetulu. Lokungiyo indlela lengenta ukuthi babe nebadlali labayongenela le midlalo lemikhulu. Lebekela umsakazo weSwatini TV kutemidlalo ngiphathizwe Msibi eMbabane.
Bethi ngawo-ke talapha eveni sikuphathele tona lomhla ekuseni ngalo muhle sibahlola imarket uma sibuya lungelele sits down with Inyathi Group Construction.
After you had entered on Eswatini TV, look for Tinzaba or KPS. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell button to get notifications of our video uploads and streams. And lastly, enjoy the stream. Stay home and watch Eswatini TV. Stay safe.
Welcome back. Sivusele nawo losanza kuzivulela nje babezivedile masingena ehlelweni ukuthi isitaba esikhulumisana neNyathi Group Holding CEO Derek Shiba atukhuluma kabanti njenge dominance yale nkampani across the African continent ku-expanda ke esifundeni se-Africa licebo layo le nkampani ukuthi libe ingcenye market letinsha kanti ke ku-expanda ko-Nyathi Group unyusa linani lemakhasimende ale nkampani lekuyinvolenda ukuthi le nkampani yakhe ama-profits lasetulu kakhulu. Nyathi Construction isebenzela emaveni langu 11 kungmanje lokufaka ekhathi level eSwatini, level eMozambique, South Africa, eMalawi kanye nalamanye emave. It has recently been awarded 2 contracts for major infrastructure development projects eveni lase-Uganda kanye nase-Somaliland. So vele sokhona ke CEO Derek Shiba sichazela kabanti ngawo lama projects asekuvusele Shiba sibonga ukuthi ube nathi nomhla ekseni kume nje kuva kabanti njengoba sengithinzile nje kancane ukuthi strategy senu ukuthi nikhone ukuthi ni access new markets kungaba kuva nje lokuthi abavele mhlambe kahle kahle licebo leNyathi yini ukuthi li expand emavenda sesifundeni seAfrica.
Asivusele umbukele emakhaya Lulu. Sizivusele sive emagumbini lamana emhlabathi walive la kaNgwane. Ngathi kwecala nje ngicela kubonga liphupha lengwenyama le First World lapho khona livete eMaswatini khula kweNyathi sikhuluma nje eminyakeni lophelile beyigubha iminyaka leng40 iexista even leMaswati nakulamanye amave eAfrica. Kuchubeka licebo leNyathi leku expanda in Africa ku dominator leAfrica sakhe umnyuzi wenkampani longona ukuthi ukhulise eMaswati. Ngicela nje kubonga futhi ubuholi beNyathi Construction kakhulu kati chairman weNyathi Construction babe Michelo Shakhantu kwekuthi lo mkhumba ushayele ufike kuleli zinga lelingubo.
Okay, kuma nje sifuna kuva nje ukuthi ingabe lama projects lesenwaqalile ngadlo ukuthi nitfolele contract the past few weeks kuma nje lena nje lesingacala ngayo kwakhiwa ke kwelidam lelibite $500 million emalangeni kuma nangasichazela ukuthi ngabe mhlambe leyo project leyo itaba benefit kanganani mhlambe leso sivo sa Uganda.
Kwekucala nje Lulu kwekuthi iNyathi over the past 6 months singasho kwekuthi kube isikhathi lapho khona inkampani ikhula. Siyayibona iNyathi iya operate ku 11 countries in Africa. The latest countries lamane ithole imisebenzi le over 2 billion emalangeni. Lokhu kuhle nekulicapho futhi eMaswatini kwekuthi inkampani le head office inkampani lenkulu eAfrica le head office eMaswatini ikhona kwekuthi inangini ihlabane eAfrica. Kule project lokhuluma ngayo Lulu kwekuthi le yase Uganda. Le project yeldam ingo $500 million. Itawasita kakhulu ema-Ugandans kakhulu ngoba i-concentrate ku supply emanti ku community yakhona eUganda.
Okay. Ingabe nje mhlambe singifuna nje singenekiwe nje vele onke lama projects ngoba sivedele ukuthi ni ku 11 countries Mozambique, Malawi, Somaliland. Ngifuna sibuke naye yase Mozambique nje project yakhona nayo lebite 288 million emalangeni. Kusichazela nje ukuthi ngabe leyo project yona leyo yini itaba benefit kanganani? Itaba benefit kanganani sivisa sa Mozambique?
kuleyo project yase Mozambique Lulu ingilothela wayeka lekuthiwa nge-N4 wa track losuka eSouth Africa utheleke khona eMozambique lohlanganisa lamavela amabili singasho lokho ukuthi utayisita kakhulu inangi isive sase Mozambique namabhizinisi ase Mozambique ngoba iaccesseka kahle le live kunangeni kumove ama goods from South Africa uye khona enangeni eMozambique ngisho ukuthi kuhle kakhulu track kuleyo project leyo unangeni lomgwaqo ufake nakulokuthiwa ngama toll gates kusho ukuthi uyakhona ukuthi ukhuphule umnotho futhi wakhona eMozambique ukhona lo mgwaqo kulungiseka umaintaineke ube sezingeni lelisetulu kakhulu.
Okay. Naso Somaliland nakhona kunemsebenzi wendako babeshiba yokwakhiwa kwemarket nayo umsebenzi loyo lobite 500 million amalangeni ni busy kakhulu vele ngabe yona le project leyo seyiqalile ihamba kanjani kutawuzuza nje abantu labanganani.
Sibonga kakhulu kuleyo Lulu kulena yase Somaliland singasho ukuthi imarket lengiyo ema projects FS World itawubita about 500 million emalangeni bantu labatawuzuza lapho kuna over 3000 directly involved ehagesa khona enangeni eSomaliland kusho ukuthi vele ngisho ukuthi sive sase Somaliland sinelicapho ngale market ngikhuluma nje sathi nasiyosayina kwaphuma ngisho nepholi bakhona eSomaliland kuyosayina lo msebenzi uyaqala ke lo msebenzi mhla ka13 kuyona lenyanga ngikhuluma nje nami imithwalo iselibhokweni ngibheke khona kulela seSomaliland kuyosusa lo msebenzi.
Okay. Ngabe imarket le kanjani imarket bamvula batawende imisebenzi yetandla noma imarket bamvunje mhlaba laba khicita labathengisa tibhitfu netithelo imarket le kanjani nje kusineketha sithoma.
Le market leya Lulu kuyimarket lengathi ngileya kanokusho na ungabeka ngelizinga lethulana ekhaya ungasho ukuthi imall ngoba iyona ifaka abantu labathengisako but belizinga lelithide la khona kulela live.
Okay. So kumenje kwanza nje kuqhubeke nje sibuke nalamanye amavela khona naseMalawi nakhona kukhona umsebenzi wendako nakha ilaboratory nakha likhishi kumenje usichazela ngawo nawo lo msebenzi loyene ukuthi ngabe ubide imali letengimalini.
iMalawi Mthombeni live lengathi nalo kukhona lapho khona sibonakala si involved ku many projects kulele yaqala lokhuluma ngayo ye laboratory sisanza kuyicetha ngikhuluma nje sesende ama finishes say hand over kunangeni ku client but ke sithe sihlabene kuleyo project leyo saphinze futhi sahlabana ngekuthi sithole ama project lamabili eMandi iclient yethu yaqala ngoIlovo Ilovo lena head office enangeni eSouth Africa lapho khona sakha isystem yekunisela kubekisa nje lo msebenzi it's about 300 million yebo wona ubalwa ngemadola kodwa nje ngemali yakithi ngu300 million emalangeni uyasuka ke lo msebenzi loyo ngaAugust nakhona ngabe sowusukile lo msebenzi ngecela kwayo iclient yaka Ilovo ukuthi uke ume kancane kuze uzokhona kucala nganangeni ngaAugust siphinde sahlabana kulomnye umsebenzi losedolobheni iMzenga lapho khona sakha eMandi sakha isystem eMandi ekunatha lokufaka ekhathi emapipe langena etitandini nako konke lapho lengingasho ukuthi nayo leyo project leyo ilicapho ngoba sive sininyenti lesitaw benefita from leyo project leyo.
Kunye sisiya ngasemaphethelweni nje babeshiba njengoba nisho ukuthi vele senivele nicalile ni dominator sifundza seAfrica nibukile nikungede emave la nisebentela khona nje manyalo nje niku 11 nibukile ukuthi indawo ufika mhlawumbe ngekuhamba kwesikhathi nifike ku 20 countries.
Kungiyo ivision yayo Inyathi Construction njengoba ngibongile ekuqaleni chairman weInyathi Construction Mabesha Khantu ukuthi silidominate la seAfrica provide ama solutions for eAfrica vele emave ayakhula ayakubo bo 20 bo 30 lesikujabulela kakhulu ukuthi kwekuqala ayakhula eMaswati buholi lobuphethe onke lama projects epholi lobakhiwe la kithi eSwatini. Sakhe i-team lengumnyuzi. Ingumnyuzi le team ngoba inama values la khona ukuthi dikhona tsebenza ku-adapta kulama cultures lehlukahlukene esathi njengoba kwekuthi iAfrica yehlukahlukene. Siyakhona ke ukuthi sideliver ama projects lasezingeni elisedulu la kuwe festival status.
Yeah, I think nje lokunye nje lokuhle nje lenikwendako babeshiba ngiloko ukuthi kubenefitana lama community members ngalokuthi vele manifika lena nicasha laba local vele ingabe vele mhlambe nasibuka nje le community le benefitako kubenefita laba local noma mhlambe kunicasha abamfu mhlambe la labasetshenziswa lehlukahlukene kuhamba kanjani nje kwecasheni kwabamfu.
Kunjalo lolu strategy lesisebenzisako kuleli lasekhaya ukuthi lama communities lapho khona kunalama projects ngiwo la involved la khona ukuthi kube ne transfer of skills kulabo laba experienced aye kulabo laba ufunda komsebenzi si apply the very same strategy nakhona kulamave ngikhuluma nje ukuthi kusuka pholi lana eMaswati la over 500 la involved lo 11 countries lapho khona kungiwo umnyuzi lofike usina ufika le uthole le local community bese soyayitrainer kuwo onke lama position management positions kuye ku crafting ku craft positions. Leso strategy leso siyasebenza mhlaba wonke ngoba lokho kwenta ukuthi nale community ive involved kule project iphathe kahle le project ito achieve lokho lebakudingako.
Okay, nokuyevakala sibonga kakhulu abashiba sesimo ukuthi ndawufika kuleyo 20 countries masinyane ngalezinga nje nisebenza ngalo ndawufika nje masinyane ku 20 countries mbukeli besikhulumisana naye Derek Shiba lo CEO Inyathi Group Holdings achazela nje ngemsebenzi labayendako emaveni le Fire Cut eSwatini Mozambique kanye ne South Africa so vedeleke ukuthi banemisebenzi lemikhulu labayichubako emaveni langu 11 esifundeni sase-Africa asabahlete makayithena sibuya sizabe sikhulumisana na Phumelele waka TV license.
Bukela luhlelo embili kanye njalo ngelisonto ngensimbi yesithupha kusihlwa lapho sixoxa kabanti nalabathi ngetindzaba tenhlalakahle temnotfo netentfutfuko. Lolu hlelo luveta luphindze lukhulumise ke imitsetfo tinhlelo nemigomo yahulumende letfutfukisa ke sive seMaswati. Luveta ematfuba netisombululo letiletsa ke inchubekela phambili esiveni. Embili kanye makubete ke liswati lelisalela emuva live lisachubekela entfutfukweni lekhonsile.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you'll go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience in the kingdom.
Asibenzele sinimukele sakuvusela nawe lo sanza kuzivulela besivedile sister besikhulumisana naphumelele losuka e-TV License Consortium. Sikhuluma ngabantu ke nge-exercise lentshala sabayisukumisile nje lebitwa ngokuthi you know your customer exercise. Lapho ke bashayela abantu bafune imininingwane yabo kodwa batawukhona ukuthi ba-update i-database yabo. Sesinaye lapha Phumi yasichazela kabanti ngayo le exercise. Ngikho siyabonga ukuthi ube khona lo mhla ekseni. Kusinike task form nje sekuthi ibale yanganani le exercise lena kungani nje ukuthi vele nisukele enyalo nokuthi nje kuva nje ukuthi sive sithini siyakhona yini ukunsita kuba khona nikuniketa leyo information leni icelako.
Siyabonga Lulu, angicela ngekuvusela ngivusele nembukeli ekhaya. Le exercise Lulu kuphendula lo mbuto wakho ukuthi ingabe bayasisita yini bayasilalela. Ngingasho ukuthi kukabili kukhona labo labavumako vele kusebenzisana nathi. Kukhona ke labo angeke ngithi abavumi kodwa kunekwesaba ngoba ngelendlela lelihlelo lesichuba ngayo ikakhulu siyashaya tincingo kulamalanga ke kunalo kwesaba vele ngoba phela kunanama scammers noma ke lapho kuluva labathatha ama chance ukuthi ashayele umuntu asho lokwana lokho kodwa nje esikhatsini lesiningi nasesti identify lesatichaza umuntu uba nalo le confidence noma leligunya lokusinika i-information noma imininingwane yakhe.
Okay. So angathi butaphumi ukuthi njobe nisolo nayo le information lena ngiyakholelwa ukuthi bamsolo bayachubeka bayayibhadala i-TV license seyinilahlekile noma kontekani nangasiketa nje kusichazela kahle kuloko.
Akusiko inzaba yokulahleka Lulu kodwa ngenzaba yema systems okhanza ukuthi nyalo nanyalo kukhona ku-upgrader i-maintenance ye-system. So ngaleyo ndlela kukhanza ukuthi nemuntu mhlawumbe sowushintshe ne-location yakhe la khona ukhanza ukuthi naye kukhona ama-devices la sawangetile. Lokhanza ukuthi nangabe thine beka bhale asibekise nje ukuthi bekune-TV license number. Mhlawumbe angibekise nje bekungilankosi so ushintshe sibongo ku-ID sithi nasesiphanja sekuvela lele sinye sibongo. So ukhanze ukuthi mhlawumbe akusamechanisi kahle. Naloko ke sesiya ku-update. So yakusiyo vele inzaba yokuthi ilahlekile. It's about maintenance, upgrading and also getting to know our customers better.
Okay. So inanishaya nje yini lena leni icela kuma customendini kodwa ngiyathi lokuthi vele nje uvetile ukuthi kunebantu labagangako mhlambe batawubotela eminye imibuto nini leni ngayibuti yini kahle kahle lena leni icelako esiven.
Siye sifune nje kukwati Lulu kukwati umuntu ke inzaba ye-ID i-location njengaloko bese ngichazile ukuthi lo munye sowusukile mhlawumbe nala bekhona so akhe empolonjeni encenye kanti abesolahla la ekhathe edolobheni emobeni. So konke lokho kuye kube part of le mibuzo lesiyibutako angeke ngagcila ukuthi kahle ngeke ngijule nakuthi yini lesiyibutako ngoba engcinye sesinike ama tips lo
lama scammers.
Yes.
Okay. So sifuna kuva nje ukuthi ngabe mhlambe yini lebhekekile kumvuvele lothenga noma ke inkampani lethenga i-device lensha ngaba inyona le TV noma ngaba ngiyena lo skutshana yini vele lebhekekile ukuthi ayende mayelana nekona siqiniseko sokuthi i-TV license ugcinwe ibhadala.
Now uyothenga i-TV Lulu esitolo kuletiningi titolo baye babhadalise lo mthelo we-TV license. Labaye bakubude batawucela ukuthi ubhalise yona imininingwane yakho yokuthi ungubani uhlobo lwe-TV nokuthi ke ngisiphi lesitolo lesithengwa kuyo. Kuneliform nje labakugcwalisa lona and then nale ID yakho ke echaza sabuve sakho inombolo yakho ukuthi ngibani ne-cell phone number nalamanye ke ama details nawo lengeke ngithanze kungena ikakhulu kuwo kodwa nje besina lokukhumbuta sive lokho ukuthi kumcoka lokubhadala i-TV license at the point of purchase or sale noma lapha nawo thenga ungakaphumi nayo esitolo. Kuyakusita ke kuyamsita lo lothenga kungaba ngilo ekhaya kungaba ngilo sebhizinisini ngokuthi once kwendeka lokho awunawukhanza so ucoshwa lihovisi lalabo labathatha umthelo kwethu nje sekuyawuba ngiloko ukukhumbuta asiyuze sibutana nawo onke lama details lamanye unless sekuba nesikhathi lapho khona ke nawe so ufuna kwengeta noma ufuna kuwanciphisa lawo ma-devices lonawo noma ke ikufele ngandlela thile.
So ikhona indlela ekulandzelela le titolo njengoba yithenga le titolo letithengisa ama-TV ukuthi vele amakhasimende awo bayabaniketa leli form lekugcwalisa ukuthi babhadale i-TV license kuhamba kanjani bayakwenda yini vele mhlambe le titolo leto?
Ngenhlanhla Lulu kunemabhuku labakhona lana lama-TV license. So sonke ngasinye isitolo lesithengisa lama-devices noma labathengisa bomabonakude vele baye babagcwalisise lama TV license TV license leli bhuku angisho njalo. So lo muntu utawuphuma nakaphuma aphume nesicebhezana lesigcwalise lonke loluhla lebe balibuta at the point of purchase.
Okay. So kuma kugcina nje phumi ngiyahle ukuthi vele kufanele sihlale sicaphele ngediga ngiletiningi ngitiphi inombolo mhlambe lengagatsa ukuthi ngangishayela lesuka lekini ukuthi ngibuta yona le information lena.
Sina MTN sisebenzisa 7802 45 43 4445. Sibeke na Swazimo na MTN lomunye long WhatsApp kungaba ngi76 222 000. Sibeke ne yaka Swazi Mobile leng 3402 0 manengeke ngikhumbule tonke kahle kodwa nje ngiyathemba ukuthi tiyavela. So kungaba ngileto labangadigatsa bekunene ikakhulu ledita ka MTN njengalokho sengishito ngilo 7802 kube na 45 42 43 44 or 45.
Alright, no, ngiyavakala sethemba ukuthi lokho sabativele ke sive samaswati sitawucaphela ngalokho sivele le exercise lena and sitawuchubeka nayo phumi the whole year mosvele.
Sitawuchubeka nayo the whole year. Siyacela nasesiveni ukuthi sisibambise.
Alright, thank you so much. Isima kakhulu phumi mbukeli sotivele ukuthi solo baka TV license bayani khotata ukuthi i-TV license niyibhadale neniqiniseke ukuthi ngisho ithenga esitolo ubagcwalisela lawo ama-form lawo ukhona kulandzelela ukuthi i-TV license yakho iyabhadala. Sibahlele market sibuya ne-traffic update.
Do you remember the spinning thing? This is us. This picture represents what we did. We were there when coronavirus wreaked havoc in our population. Together with other stakeholders, we formed the first line, controlling the spread of the unknown and unseen enemy of the people. Anxious ourselves, we collected dead bodies countrywide. At the time when no one wanted to come near dead bodies of loved ones, we did care for our fellow citizens. Thank you, the people of Eswatini and teams of first responders.
Asimze sinimukele sikuvusele nawo losanza kusivulela kulesikhathi sitawubuka simo semgwaqo lomhla ekseni na Sergeant Gule asekuvusele emagwabani khambeka kanjani emgwaqweni.
Anguvusele Thombeni ngalokukhethekile ngivusele umbukeli welihlelo nasibuka umthamo wetmotolo sowuvele ukuqalile kuphakama emgwaqweni kanjalo nalo linanda labo labahamba ngezinyawo kugcizelela nje nokukhumbuta wonke losebenzisa umgwaqo kuthi la ukhona khona yenda siqiniseko sokuthi uyabonakala bese ke bashayeli benda siqiniseko ukusinakela ikakhulukazi wonke logibele imotolo losebenzisa umgwaqo ngemotolo kanjalo nalo lohamba ngezinyawo kanti ke emadolobheni ethu embabane siyawukhumbuta sona sive ukuthi umgwaqo solo uyakhiwa na uqhamuka eTulu esidwashini ungena lapha kubo icourt utakhona isandla lapha esontweni laseManazareni noma ke la khona lapha eAssembly wakhiwa nje ke lo mgwaqo kuna stop and go imotolo adikhonge ukuhamba donke letiphumako ekhathi yesandla naletingenako iqhamuka khona escort kepha ke siyawuniketana emathuba lesingakugcizelela nje kakhulu uhlonipha ikakhulukazi labo labacontrola yona phela itraffic labalawula kona kuhamba kwetimotolo baphethe tona tindvangu letibovu kuthina seyiphakamile lendvangu yakhombisa ukuthi uyamiswa asende njalo lapho bekunene ngoba lokho kuyawusela ukuthi kuhambeke kube lula kunekuthi imoto lo tiyawuhlangana sekuhlangana ekhathi ngokuthi munye nje webashayeli wehlulekile kuhlonipha ikakhulukazi lapho siniketana wona-ke mathuba nekuveta-ke ukuthi yona leyo ngcingwana bekunene asinake lokho ukuthi kuloyo mgwaco kude esiteshi semabhasi lekwenda-ke ukuthi mhlawumbe labo bashayeli uyawubakhanza sebeme ikhathi emgwacweni siyakhuthaza nakhona bekunene ukuthi asichubeke sishayele ngalokho kukhulu ukucophelela sinakane kunalabo labahamba ngathi kuncola tekuthutha bakhona kwehla ngesikhathi kanti kulonye ihlangothi asivete bekunene kokuthi na usuka khona edolobheni elikhulu lembabane uveka khona lapha endasi kumathapha nakhona siyaqwayisa ukuthi asicaphele labo labasebenzako emgwacweni lomkhulu labasilungiselako ukuthi uhlale ungiloyo sezingeni lelisedulu kanti-ke tiba netemgwaco embabane tisebenza kahle lapha kamanzini kumathapha kanjalo nalapha endasi yenhlangano lesingakuveta nje-ke na uthatha umgwaco long MR8 usuka lapha kuhelehele umgwaco lobheka lapha endasi kubo Big Band edolobheni lasesiphofaneni na ungena nje naso sakhiwo lesisha lesakhiwako lesingasencele lapho kune-traffic circle leyakhiwako lapho noma-ke kunalabo labasebenza khona ekhathi emgwacweni labenda-ke ukuthi kuhamba kwetimoto lokwehluke kunaloko lokudayelekile kuhamba ngekuconza siyacela-ke ukuthi nakhona abashayeli batinake timpawu njengoba tibekiwe akhona-ke amaphoyisa kuleyo nzawana leyo kulawula ikakhulukazi njengoba nabanye abashayeli bangakhona ukuhlolisisa kahle leto inkulumo letiphakanyiswe ngaleto timpawu temgwaco letikhona lapho siyagcizelela nakhona bekunene ukuthi asichubeke sishayele ngalokukhulu ukucophelela kanti kulonye ihlangothi ama-potholes ayabonakala nawubheka khona lapha enhlangano ku-MR9 ayabonakala nawubheka khona lapha kubobhunya kubomhlambanyathi kanjalo-ke futhi noma uqhamuka etulu kumathamo ubuya khona edolobheni lasesipiki uzofika khona embabane emgwacweni loku-MR1 nakhona bekunene siyagcizelela nje kakhulu ukuthi asichubeke emehlo ethu abe ngilawo lakhaliphile kucenza yona-ke indlela nekugcizelela kakhulu bekunene ikakhulukazi kulabo labathutha sona sive ukuthi asende isiqiniseko sokuthi leti moto loteksi ziphilile sinake ikakhulukazi litubane lesihamba ngalo sigweme kusebenzisa tincingo kusiko-ke kuphela kulabo bashayeli labatusebenzisa tincola tekufutha kuwo wonke nje umshayeli siyakhuthaza lokho ukuthi asikugweme kusebenzisa tincingo emgwacweni kulamalanga kunanangomkhuba nje wokulivula lucingo ulibeke ku-loudspeaker nako lokho akukavumeleke akukho nani emthethweni lucingo nje awulusebenzisi usemgwacweni ngoba luyayidvunga ingqondo luyayikhweshisa ingqondo yakho kunangomsebenzi omkhulu wekuchuba yona incola emgwacweni sifisela nje sona sive semaswati indlela lenhle nalephephile sisawusebenzisa umgwaco nanendlela emsakazo simfisele lona langa lelihle yebona leliphephile sachubeka nemsebenzi wethu siyabonga
Sibakhulu kule sibonge kakhulu ukusiniketa leyo report lomhla ekuseni sitabahlethe emakethe nasibuya sithatha indzaba ngaphandle kwakuleli
Kubhalisela lukhefo sekuqalile ngakho-ke faka isandla ekwakheni uhulumende wakho ngekuthi ubhalise bhalisela lukhefo esiteshini sekubhalisa lesisedvute nawe kubhalisa kutawugcina amatili 14 inhlaba kulosetulu 14 June 2023 ungasali zakha live letfu
Welcome back. It's 7:07. Let's take a look at international news. An earthquake with a preliminary magnitude of 4.9 struck southern Haiti early Tuesday, killing at least 4 people and injuring 36 others. It follows unrelated deadly flooding in the impoverished nation.
It's been a devastating couple of days in Haiti. Unrelated flooding and an earthquake have killed scores of people and left thousands homeless. Early on Tuesday morning, the small Caribbean nation, already grappling with rampant insecurity and turmoil, was struck by a 4.9 magnitude tremor. The quake hit off the southwestern coast at a depth of 10 kilometers, collapsing buildings and trapping people inside. But the biggest loss of life occurred over the weekend. Lashing rains battered the Western Hemisphere's poorest nation. Over 40 people were killed by the high waters that ensued, which also displaced over 13,000.
The river was flooding and I lost my child. We've lost everything. I'm completely naked. The Prime Minister should help us.
I lost a 5-year-old child. I nearly lost 2, but God left the other one hanging in the tree. I saved one, but I still lost one anyway. My house was swept away by the floods. I have lost everything. Kind people have given me clothes to wear. I have no one to rely on.
The country's Prime Minister has mobilized a government response, but the situation is critical. Even before the natural disasters of the last few days, almost half of Haiti's 11 million people were in need of humanitarian assistance. That number is only growing.
The International Committee of the Red Cross has asked the Swiss government for help as it faces a dire financial crisis with a deficit of over 440 million euros in its budget this year.
It is arguably the symbol of help in times of war. The International Committee of the Red Cross has, for the past 160 years, aided tens of millions. But what happens when the needs are too great and the means too few? The ICRC is facing a massive funding gap. To mitigate the damage of the over 440 million euros that's missing from its 2023 budget, the organization decided this spring to scale back. 26 of its 350 offices abroad will close, such as in Mauritania and Malaysia. Worldwide, 1,800 employees will be let go. That's in addition to hundreds of short-term contracts that won't be renewed at the Geneva headquarters. The reasons for such a hole in its nearly €3 billion budget are many. First, the sheer number of those in dire need. It's ballooned from 140 million a decade ago to 340 million today. The ICRC is largely financed by countries like the US, Germany, and Switzerland. And the war in Ukraine has turned some nations' attention away from other conflicts. Inflation, too, and the growing domestic needs from it have also cut donations. There's also grumbling that the ICRC's former president, Peter Maurer, mismanaged the budget. Some 250 employees signed an open letter against the cuts, citing mismanagement and a lack of forethought. The ICRC has now asked the Swiss government for help. Since its inception in 1863, it has been, for Bern, a soft power gem, a symbol of Swiss neutrality. But it and foreign funding cannot solve the larger problem, that with war, poverty, and the climate crisis, the number of those in dire need is growing.
Canada is dealing with a series of intense wildfires that have spread from the western provinces to Quebec, with hundreds of forest fires burning. The smoke has traveled into the United States as far south as New York City, resulting in a number of air quality alerts and warnings of the health risks posed by the pollution.
New York City, shrouded in thick fog. The Big Apple is feeling the effects of smoke from fires in neighbouring Canada, which has spread hundreds of kilometres south. It's the same story in the state of Ohio, parts of which are enveloped in fog, with the sun burning bright red. According to experts, air pollution has reached health-threatening levels in several US cities.
The levels that we're seeing today are really much higher than what are normally seen in a large polluted city in Asia, for example. And so we're really seeing these exceptional levels that are traditionally seen in really, really populated cities.
There are currently hundreds of fires raging across Canada, with more than 150 in Quebec alone. The province has become the epicenter of the country's wildfires. In the capital, Ottawa, which borders Quebec, residents woke up to an orange haze on Tuesday. which has led to health officials advising people to wear masks when outside, to limit their time outdoors, and to keep their windows closed with the air conditioning on. Experts are warning of the dangers of exposure to such conditions.
Not only cause topical irritation through all of our respiratory linings, but actually cross over into our bloodstream.
Air quality is expected to remain poor over the coming days. There is no rain forecast, and the wind is helping the fires to spread.
As Ukraine and Russia trade blame for the Kakhovka dam collapse, the international community has been weighing in on the looming environmental disaster. Kyiv's biggest backer, the US, is actively reviewing intelligence as to the cause of the catastrophe, but says it cannot be certain yet who is responsible.
As Ukraine and Russia trade blame for the Kakhovka dam collapse, the international community has been weighing in on the looming environmental disaster. Kyiv's biggest backer, the US, is actively reviewing intelligence as to the cause of the catastrophe, but so far it said it wasn't certain.
We have seen the reports that Russia was responsible for the explosion at the dam, which Russia forces took illegally last year, and we have been continuing to monitor. We can't say conclusively what happened at this point, but we will share more information when we can.
Across the border in Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also wasn't pointing any fingers prematurely.
This is yet another example of the horrific consequences of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine.
Some leaders, however, were more sure of who was to blame. Lithuania shares a border with the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad. Its president said such events raise questions over the limits of common sense.
You start to wonder, perhaps there aren't any taboos when it comes to blackmail over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plants that Russia seeks to use against all civilized worlds. These are the war crimes and the crimes of aggression.
Meanwhile, the chief of the UN said the collapse was another devastating consequence of the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Today's tragedy is yet another example of the horrific price of war on people. The floodgates of suffering have been overflowing for more than a year, and that must stop. Attacks against civilians and critical civilian infrastructure must stop.
The UN's Atomic Energy Agency said the cooling pond for the nearby Zaporizhzhia power plant has enough water for months, but that the bursting of the dam is making an already difficult and unpredictable security situation even more so.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken held a meeting with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince in Jeddah on Tuesday, with a discussion touching on topics including Saudi Arabia's support for U.S. evacuations from Sudan, the need for political dialogue in Yemen, and the potential for the normalization of relations with Israel.
Landing in Jeddah on Tuesday, America's top diplomat Antony Blinken began his three-day visit to the kingdom in an attempt to mend a strained but strategic relationship between Saudi Arabia and the US. The two nations have not seen eye to eye in years on a plethora of issues, among them oil prices, Iran policy and human rights. On Wednesday, Blinken met with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The two men discussed their shared priorities, including countering terrorism through the de-ISIS coalition, achieving peace in Yemen, and deepening economic and scientific cooperation, Blinken said on Twitter. According to a US official, another topic raised during the meeting was the potential normalization of Saudi-Israeli ties. This week, Secretary Blinken brought up the possibility of a rapprochement between Israel and Saudi Arabia, saying it was in the US national security interest to see the pair normalize ties, despite admitting it would no doubt take some time. The US official also said the two men discussed the conflict in Sudan. Both Washington and Riyadh have previously worked in conjunction to broker a lasting ceasefire between the warring factions in the African country. Blinken's visit comes days after Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, pledged to further cut its oil production by 1 million barrels per day to boost flagging crude prices, in a move that could surge costs for American consumers at the pump, as well as worsening global inflation. The visit is also his first since Riyadh restored diplomatic relations with Tehran, in a recent deal brokered by Beijing, at a time when tensions have spiked between Tehran and Washington. Also on Blinken's agenda during the visit is a Gulf Cooperation Council meeting in Riyadh. expected to be attended by Qatar's Prime Minister and other top Gulf officials.
Several challengers this week have jumped into the race to try to thwart former U.S. President Donald Trump from capturing the Republican Party's presidential nomination for a third consecutive time. Most notable among the new entrants, Trump's longtime Vice President Mike Pence.
On his 64th birthday, former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, for the first time, took direct aim at his own party's frontrunner, former President Donald Trump, in whose shadow he stood for 4 years.
I believe that anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be President of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put them over the Constitution should never be President of the United States again.
When pro-Trump protesters stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, there were chants of "Hang Mike Pence" because of the then vice president's refusal to follow the president's demand that he derail the process, formally declaring Joe Biden the 2020 election victor.
Joseph R. Biden Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 232 votes.
Pence holds traditional Republican views on the economy and foreign policy issues. He's a white evangelical Christian, a core constituency of the party. And Pence is out to portray himself as the most conservative of all the party's candidates on social issues, such as abortion.
After leading the most pro-life administration in American history, Donald Trump and others in this race are retreating from the cause of the unborn.
As George Mason University political science professor Jeremy Mayer points out, with his qualifications, why is Pence polling in the low single digits among Republicans, and far behind Trump's closest challenger, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis?
The vice presidency has diminished him even more than it diminishes most vice presidents. President Donald Trump demanded extreme loyalty to the point of obsequiousness.
Only 2 out-of-office vice presidents have ever made it back here by election to the White House. Republican Richard Nixon did it with his victory in 1968. The second time was 3 years ago, when Democrat Joe Biden defeated incumbent Donald Trump, also sending Pence packing.
Trump has transformed the party. You see the people that want to replace Trump, like Ron DeSantis, he's heading into populism and wading into culture wars. And Mike Pence can do that in terms of substance. He can talk about the policies of the culture war, but what he can't do so far, has not shown us, is the ability to be a populist in tone. And that's what the Republican Party is looking for after Trump.
Whatever happens in next year's Republican primary election, Mike Pence has already made history, now becoming the first former U.S. vice president to directly challenge his one-time running mate.
With Turkey facing a looming financial crisis, newly re-elected President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has turned to market-friendly policymaker Mehmet to lead the finance ministry. Analysts say the move marks a dramatic economic policy pivot.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's appointment of Mehmet Şimşek, a former US banker, as finance minister is widely seen as heralding an end to Erdogan's unorthodox policy of cutting interest rates to tame soaring inflation, running officially at around 40%.
It marks a 180 and about turn in economic policies from Erdogan. Remember, he's run unorthodox policies for much of the last decade. Şimşek was in a previous Erdogan administration with those unorthodox policies and kind of left because he didn't like them. So I think the fact that he's come back suggests that Erdogan has recognized that he has to do something differently.
Many blame Erdogan's low interest rate policy for fueling inflation, which remains stubbornly high, especially for food, with traders and buyers hit hard.
Everyone's purchasing power is decreasing. That is very clear. Especially on the days when fruits and vegetables are sold in the market, it is very visible how much people's buying capacity has decreased.
The Turkish lira has weakened to record lows in the aftermath of Erdogan's re-election, and Turkey has few foreign currency reserves left to defend it. Tourists from abroad are expected to replenish foreign currency reserves, but analysts warn time is running out to avert a crisis.
Turkey is heading very rapidly to a currency crisis, or more formally speaking, balance of payments crisis. I personally think Turkey cannot survive this winter without major, substantive and credible economic policy change.
Returning to the economic orthodoxy of increasing interest rates to tame inflation is one option for increasing foreign investment and may even bring Turkey closer to traditional Western allies.
A return to orthodox economic policies, which will emphasize the importance of Western markets, Western lenders, financial institutions, etc. And this will probably have a bearing on the political aspect of the foreign policy.
But taming inflation with high interest rates is a painful process, reducing economic growth and hitting especially hard Turkey's large construction industry, which depends on cheap money. Moreover, with the construction industry having close ties to Erdogan, questions remain as to whether the government will continue with an orthodox economic policy.
The concern is that 6 months down the line and before local elections that are due in early next year, that Erdogan may have enough of this type policy and may actually put pressure on Şimşek not to do what he needs to do or even fire him.
Erdogan has already declared his priority to retake the Istanbul mayorship from the opposition. Politics, as ever, are likely to dictate whether Turkey perseveres and makes difficult decisions on the economy.
Kenyan police fired tear gas at hundreds of people protesting near Parliament against a proposed finance bill that would hike taxes on fuel and housing.
Scenes of panic in downtown Nairobi as police fired tear gas and stun grenades to disperse a crowd of protesters. Several hundred Kenyans had rallied in the capital to oppose a new finance bill and were taken aback by what they saw as an unnecessary use of force.
Police are being used by the government to interrupt peaceful demonstration. We want the police to obey our constitution and protect every Kenyan, because we are the people, we have the power, and we are saying no to finance bill.
The controversial bill introduced by President William Ruto is calling for new or increased taxes on a wide range of essential products such as food and fuel, but also on emerging industries like cryptocurrencies and social media influencers. The government argues the tax hikes are necessary to fill its coffers and fix an economy crippled with debt. But many Kenyans see the plan as a betrayal of Ruto's campaign pledge to help the poor and feel the law will only add to existing economic hardships.
People need money, and that money is being taxed. You are being taxed twice for something that you need to get free. So we need that financial ability to go down.
The controversial bill still needs to be debated and approved by Kenya's parliament before becoming law.
As DR Congo heads towards elections later this year, a highly controversial law is set to go before MPs that calls for only candidates for whom both parents are Congolese to be eligible to become president.
Noel Chani never misses an opportunity to campaign. Elections in DR Congo are due in December, and Noel Chani is fiercely defending a bill he's spearheading that calls for only people with two Congolese parents to be allowed to run for top office, including the presidency. He says the change would be in the country's best interests.
If DR Congo happened to have a president whose mother would be Congolese and father be, say, Rwandan, he might be prone to making decisions challenging the country's national sovereignty.
The controversial text was first submitted to the National Assembly in 2021. Lawmakers rejected it for being unconstitutional, but this time the bill will be examined. Ivory Coast's concept of ivoirité is in everyone's mind. It was brought to the national stage in the 1990s by a candidate accusing his contender of not being 100% Ivorian.
The concept of ivoirité meant 7 million Ivorians were denied citizenship, which led to the war. Here, we don't deny citizenship to anyone.
The bill's critics say it is an attempt to block one specific candidate 7 months before the presidential election, Moise Katumbi. Should this bill pass and be enacted this year, the opponent candidacy could be invalidated.
The competition should be open to all, and no one should be seen as a threat to those who claim they are going to win the elections. We can see that all these manoeuvres are aimed at Katumbi because he makes them feel insecure. Such a bill is a bad look on democracy.
Civil society organizations have called the text racist, and President Felix Tshisekedi has expressed reservations about its relevance.
After his May 29th inauguration, Nigerian President Bola Tinubu announced he would soon end a decades-old fuel subsidy, saying the country can no longer afford the cost. His comments sparked panic buying of gas and raised concerns about inflation in one of Africa's top oil-producing countries.
Happiness Modunga, a widow and a mother of 5, lost her cleaning job in April. Left with no savings from her last job, which paid only $35 a month, Modunga started producing and selling tiger nut milk to support her family. However, she barely makes enough to match the rising cost of living caused by surging inflation.
When I was working in that main road,
when I was working on that main road, people were helping me with money. But by the end of this month, it has not been easy for me because sometimes my daughter wants to beg for food. She wanted to beg for food one night when we returned from church. I started crying.
Happiness is not alone. Nigeria annual inflation rate rose to 22.22% in April, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Attempting to control the inflation pressure is the main reason the newly inaugurated Nigeria government says it is set to remove fuel subsidy beginning July.
Subsidy can no longer justify its ever-increasing costs in the wake of drying resources.
Since Tinubu's announcement, fuel pump prices have increased across Nigeria. Experts say this will deepen the hardship that average people face.
The moment there is a 1 naira increase in price of petroleum products, you expect a 3 naira increase in the prices of goods and services in Nigeria. So you expect to see at least 150 million Nigerians going down the poverty line now. That is the implication.
The new administration says it understands the hardship associated with ending the subsidy, but says it is best for the nation long-term economic health.
We shall instead rechannel the funds into better investment in public infrastructure, education, healthcare, and jobs that will materially improve the lives of millions.
Economic observers generally agree ending the subsidy will help in the long run, but many are urging the government to strategize ways to cushion the short impact on citizens.
The PGA Tour has announced a shock merger with the Saudi-backed Live Golf Circuit, rocking the golfing world with a bombshell deal aimed at ending the sport's 2-year civil war. After 2 years of disruption and distraction, this is a historic day for the game we all know and love, said PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan.
Teeing off into a new era. The golfing world was rocked on Tuesday as the PGA Tour announced a merger with the Saudi-backed Live Golf. The agreement also includes the DP World Tour. The shock announcement comes after an acrimonious split in the game just over a year ago, which saw Live lure several top golfers away from the PGA by offering huge sums of money. 6-time major champion Phil Mickelson was one of the first to defect. He signed a bumper contract reportedly worth upwards of $200 million in June of last year. Players such as Mickelson and former world number 1 Dustin Johnson were indefinitely suspended by the PGA Tour for playing in live events. They could now have a path to return. For those involved in forming the merger, there is no doubt that the time was right to do so.
There is no question, this united front has the potential to positively shape the future of golf.
How are you guys doing this evening?
LIV is bankrolled by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, which has led to many accusing the country of sports washing, the practice of using sports to improve a reputation tarnished by a dismal human rights record. Two players who stuck by the PGA Tour are Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods, even though both were reportedly offered hundreds of millions of dollars to join LIV. Despite that, neither man was consulted before the merger was announced.
Obviously, Tiger and Rory's perspective is one that I understand very well, and it was part of my thinking throughout these conversations, and it will be a part of my thinking going forward. And now that we're in a framework agreement, I look forward to talking to all of our players, including the two of them.
The agreement puts an end to the pending litigation between the tours that would have gone to court next year.
27 minutes after 7, we've come to the end of our essential news. Thank you for staying with us. Tabahlete Magete, masibuya sikhulumisana nebaga IDCE.
We at Eswatini Television Authority are committed to observing the Eswatini Communication Commission's Broadcasting Code of Conduct.
Under the code, we are committed to broadcast news that is current, free from hate speech, accurate, balanced, and fair.
From politics to business, health, agriculture, courts, and global news, we bring you the latest updates as they happen, when they happen.
We cover all the sporting codes from the football pitch to the chessboards. This is Eswatini TV News.
Two minutes after 7, Kusile Breakfast Show. We have IDCE back again today, as usual, on every Thursday. Mr. Mkabela, you are the Projects Appraisal Officer at IDCE. Yeah, namhla sikhulumisa indzaba yeteklima ke laven la ngwane limco kakhulu quite of singasho ukuthi lenye ema backbone economy neSwati bathi insila yelive kulimi asikhulume ngako ke nanikhuluma yenza baye ukuthi kune agricultural product loan itargeta ema farmers I believe capital costs and what not define the agricultural loan.
Okay, agricultural loan is a product target for farmers for capital cost and working capital. What we're saying there is sisita abalimi kulo lonke uhlobo lolwimi kungaba kumbe ulema speedphone noma ulima tilwane ukuthi bende libhizinisi lekulima sibachasa ke ngetimali ukuthi bacale basebende kungaba ukuthi angibekise nje ke ngoni ulima umoba siyamfakela irrigation simnikete netimali tekulima the disking the plowing sithenga nama siphinde futhi simchase nangetimali tekusebenta.
Okay.
So yasebenza ke manje sokuqalile uyalima uyanisela bo fertilizer ngasalaries alabo labasebenzela lapho kuze kufike egcine ndathi ngisakhona lo moba wakhe.
Okay, engabe kule tilimo noma ngithi lama crops leno finance ako kude ni limit finance onke ama crops noma kunala special bese sugar cane siya sugar cane evenangwane mambita sukela nje sithi Swazi gold.
Yes.
So tizathu futhi ukuthi nasu export house sendele umsebenzi lomhlanga nani kutemna nina manikhuluma ngala ma crops do you finance all types of crops?
IDCA mngoni singakubeka sobala ukuthi ufinancer lonke lihlobo lema crops as long livumelekile ukuthi lilinywe event lakithi likakhulu sikhona emobeni but nje ke sikhona nasembileni emabhonjisini nakonke nje ke ma vegetables you talk of your cabbages your carrots what lokulimo nje lokuvumelekile lokuthi ngangilolive kakhulu ngikakhulu ke siyesinyalo lesikubukile ukuthi sibuke tinto leti pusha kakhulu i food security into the country. That's why we see the increase in the maize, beans and other crops, and also we also look at ema crops la noma those products la kanze ukuthi siwa importa kakhulu kule live nakhona siyasifaka sandla kakhulu ukuthi balimi basitakale ukuthi balime lo limo.
Manje kusuke sekuba singisi ukhuluma nge-rehabilitation on working capital sekuyangeca engabe yini le rehabilitation working capital?
Okay mngweni shothi lapho sithi umlimi nangabe kumbe ukwalima sekunesikhathi ngidawo ubekisa ngawo umoba because ngilapho kusinelichasa lelikhulu khona ukhanze kwekuthi kumbe ulimile sekuphele noma iminyaka lelishumi siyati ke ukuthi umoba uthi ngathi bese phinze futhi uyawususa wonke uthi replant so singilapho la sichasa khona ke abalimi ukuthi so ulimile sesiyabona ukuthi awusikhathi sesihambile lesivuno lososikhicitako asasiso lesihle awusakhona ukwenda izuzo futhi ke nase umoba umdzala ukhanze ukuthi awusakhulu nakahle noma unisela noma uwendani so siyabachasa ke balimi ukuthi baqalele phasi bandile replanting le working capital phinde futhi asisho ukuthi ngoba sesikwendele le replanting saluthi ubona ukuthi uyaphi sithine sifuna ukuthi nasichasa ngetimali noma sekufinance ukhona ukuthi usitakale uze uyovuna bese ke sesifaka ke labo working capital which is your salaries your fertilizers and everything.
Ngiyadibuta nje ukuthi mangabe ngumlimi ngilima ku Eswatini land so khona ke nalo lomunye umlimi lo lima ku title land noma sithi ku family land anibese yini semnyembenye seninaka laba be Eswatini land kuphela
cha kude lesimcwaya ko as long alima lelo limo lelivumelekile kule live futhi anako lokushoko ukuthi uvumelekile ukuthi alime emngoni because asibekise nje emaswati lamaningi siwachasile ku Eswatini land.
Okay.
Lapho ke sifuna nje lokho ukuthi sibone sifakazelo ukuthi uniketiwe lo mhlaba ukuthi angalima sikhathi lesingakanani futhi kuyamlungela yini ukuthi alime lapho sesifuna ke incwadi lesuka nasemphakathini esho ukuthi vele lo mhlaba wakhe ukuthi angalima kuwo.
Okay. Engabe uma nikhuluma ngema off-take contracts nibuka bona laba off-take contracts kuphela noma niyabanikana labanye?
Si IDC ngapanile chasa bonke balimi. But lokube kube kuhle ngalona le off-take agreement ukuthi so unako kusho ukuthi emakethe uyomixa lokungaka batakutha ngemali engaka bakuthi nganini futhi nalo teke naye sesithi akete kithi simsite simchase ngayo noma ke simfinance likakhulu sesibuka ukuthi ukwasebenza indvele bafuna lokungakanani zame ukuconfirma lokuthi le market vele ikhona yini because lokumcwa kakhulu mnguni nawu sebenza lo hlobo lokulima ukuthi the market ibe khona wathi ukuthi uyothengisa kuphi uyothengisa ngamalini nini futhi.
Nangelo mbuto lo besibawuthanza kakhulu indzaba ye-security. Ngumaphi ama-security leniba nawo noma lenima-require ishako as IDCE for agricultural loans?
IDCE is a development financer. Lokusho kwekuthi uchasa based on viability. I-security sengilokunye nje lesiye sikubuke ukuthi awu kumbe songasilethela lokunye because nako kuyakukhuthata ukuthi nangake ndikahle batawuthatha naku kwami nako but nje likakhulu sesibuke le viability ukuthi ikhona inlenzuzo. Nangabe kumbe ukhanze ukuthi kumbe leyo ke i-loan noma mbe leyo project yakho enkulu kakhulu songasiniketa ke i-security.
Uma umuntu ayothatha i-loan kuba netinvo netifuni ngesilungisinyani nithi ma-basic requirements tinvo nje lokufuna umuntu ukuthi atimithe letahlukahlukene ngutiphi lana letimqwa kakhulu la ku-agricultural loan?
Siyabonga Mboni. Shothi nje lesikubuka kakhulu kungaba kumbe ngibeke lokuthathu kungaba emakethe uyothengisa kuphi.
Okay.
Iyakudzinga invele le makethe leyo ngaleso sikhathi. Agriculture ke sonke siyati kuyalinywa. Uyawudzinga umhlaba uyawudzinga imali. Egcina konke ngibone nje bangishilo ukuthi thina si finance based on viability. Ngabe vele ikhona inzuzo profitability.
Okay. So baletinvo timbili kamsiletinzathu letina.
Tinzathu nguni imakethe,
viability,
land and water.
Okay, sengemandi
because ngumhlaba nemandi vele kuhambisana nekulima.
Ngumaphi ke ma challenges noma ke ngathi tithirabeto letiningi laba bese bahlangabetana nato balimi la kangwane kakhulu nekuthi ke ngitiphi isombululo lo ngabe suggest?
Lokhu kucala lengakubeka ngasho ukuthi i-price instability. Simaswati esikhathini lesiningi siye sithi nasilima kusilimo sinye sonke ngidawubekisa nje ke lamba bane ukhanze kusesilima klabishi sonke le market sesiyayiflada nasifladile ke le market le price seyitawushona phansi ke manje because you know the rule of supply and demand nangabe kukunenge market bese thinto tiyenhla but sithi umlimi akabukisise kahle abuke ukuthi lokhu kudzingeka nini futhi akubuke lokho ukuthi nakakulima emarket itakuthatha kanjani futhi ke ngisiphi lesikhathi la kulima ngaso angalimi ngalesikhathi kukunenge kakhulu lokho lokukhona abuke nakulo ngazuthi kuya akukho ku market ngaleso sikhathi alime kona sethinge indlela letibanga ukuthi umlimi angalima throughout the year lekufaka ukuthi nakhona siyakuchasa lokho ema-tunnels whereby you control the temperatures and everything.
Engabe nithi kunenvelo kwathi bala price instability, high input costs, liquidity constraints. Indzaba ya liquidity constraints nonga ngichazela kabanti kuleyo nje.
Okay Mnguni. La kulama liquidity constraints ngilasibuka khona ukuthi emarket lokwendeka kusikhathi lesiningi singathini siyakuthokotela lokwendiwa bantu labathengela abalimi bethu babathengela babanika nedincwadi but lokuye kuhluphe esikhathi lesiningi kanti ukuthi umlimi sokude le mali kanti ekulimeni na uyofaka phasi uthinga inhlanyelo uthinga fertilizer uthinga umlota kulimela ngesigolumba lokufuneka umbhadari lokwenda kwesikhathi lesiningi uyithola ukuthi la simixa khona emarket ethu bahlala bo 30 days to 60 days ukuthi bambhadare umlimi lokutholakala ukuthi umlimi sotholakala manje ke anjani asede imali manje ukuthi achubeke ende kahle emsebenzi yakhe yokulima.
Ngiyafuna ukuthi siphinde simchaze nalo price instability.
Price instability balimi betele control on the price uyalima emaklabishi wena ngoma iprice ibheswa kuphi ngoni ibheswa kule tinvo lotisebenzisile nawe uyolima angeke nje uvuke ekuseni uthi hayi klabishi lamseli ngi10 rand uyubuka indleko lotisebenzisile ukuze ufike kulo 10 rand ngalesikhathi ke nonke senilimela amaklabishi la market semanengi la maklabishi kanti indleko takho kumbe betithi 12 emalangeni so ufike emarket ukhanza ukuthi lo mnye sotibita lakhe bani 8 imali nguze lito khona kuhamba so le price kenyalo seyehla enyuka ngikhulume nge-supply and demand whereby nase kukunenge kakhulu emarket iprice yakho seyiyehla so yena ude vele kahle le control especially nakalime ngesikhathi lesingasiso kahle ngasalelo limo.
So ngiyaphika lo ukuthi uthi imcoka lapho le crop diversification
kakhulu Mnguni ukuthi sibuke ukuthi okay nyalo kunaloku emarket thineke nakulokunye lesingakulima singathi khanzi silimo sinye sonke.
Okay. Khuluma ke nana ngumlimi lo lapha ekhaya nyalo lasibuka nje kusinyalo ubusika nyalo. Ning IDCE nibakhuthata ukuthi bete batawusatha na agricultural loan. You may not be umuntu loqhamuka lapha eThekwini tekulima but mangabe nje ninayo le service lena uthi abete babuke deep kakhulu tilimo nyalo.
Okay, singathi ukuthi balimi abafike kithi sitokhona kubabonisa because kululimo silibuka nangenzalo.
Okay.
Ukuthi okay indzawo yakho ikuphi sitakhona ke sick advise accordingly ukuthi okay wena nawo kamanzini ngiyabekisa ungalunga kunalimo nalinyalo ungalima na crop nayi likakhulu iple market yakho so singabakhuthatha nje kusibalimi abete sitakhona kuba sita siba advise accordingly nangenzalo yabo ukuthi nalo limo lelibalungelako.
Yeah. Sisikile sabane bakaSetco bathinza indzaba yokuthi kulama competition lababanawo nalama programs lababanawo iagriculture ihamba embili cishe nje kuto tonke izinto labanato maswati akuthakasela kulima nasemarket kulima kungathi ngiko lokuhamba embili ingabe injani le uptake kula service lena mas competition nalamanye ngoba cishe sibukela amaningi ama products en.
Yes emaswati ngisho ngoni ukuthi lilimo alithathe ngendlela lesedulu kakhulu bayeta kakhulu bantu bayasitakala kakhulu bantu inyalo nje sikhona nakabuma feedlots siwasitile emaswati ku Swazi Nation Land so vele ngilona limo lelihamba embili kakhulu.
Ngabe dinombolo tene uthi nitfolakala laphi ngiyangithanda ukuthi nikusho nani lo as much as inombolo sitayibhala lapha ku screen.
IDC utholakala edlani ubeke e5th floor nenombolo yethu bangashayela noma baswathaphele ku 7622 9989 noma 7929989.
Okay. Yeah, ngicela ke nembukelo uyayibona nje solo ikhona lapha kumabona kuze iyahamba lapha phasi. Ngicela ke lata ufuna kunitsinza batanitsinza. Nginayo lelithemba lokuthi solo banitsinza solo sicale ukukhuluma nani.
Cha. Mbela umgqumo omkhulu siyabonga kakhulu kuwemnguni naso siteshi.
Xolani Mkhabela is the project appraisal officer with IDCE. So sichazele kabanti ngayo product yabo labakhuluma ngayo ka agriculture le khona bamaswati lamaningi athola khona iloan ukuthi akhone kuhamba ayawulima akhone kusimama market ekulima. Sibonga kakhulu ke kuba nayo lo mntasa sibahlola market nasibuya sichubeka nehlelo.
Good morning, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Sikuvusile nalo sanza kusivulela sesiqhubeka nalo hlelo lethu lomhla ekseni. Ngathi lesikhathi sidabuka nje iclip lesinifakele yona lapha ikhuluma nje member states ukuthi on the 1st of June they elected Ambassador Dennis Francis from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago as the president of the 78th session of the General Assembly. He was elected by acclamation of the General Assembly, which comprises all 193 UN member states.
After his election, Francis wanted the pursuit of policies that support and encourage investing in people and therefore in the creation of social capital in the medium and long term is arguably among the most effective strategies for promoting and achieving intuthuko lekonsako.
Stand humbly before this august House of Plenipotentiaries with immense gratitude to all 193 members for the confidence they have reposed in me to serve as president of the 78th session, an undertaking that is both an honor and a privilege. I have been overwhelmed and yet at the same time buoyed by the extraordinary demonstrations of support, solidarity, and goodwill that have consistently accompanied me on this journey over several months. My heart is truly full, even as I remain keenly aware that being called to serve as President of the General Assembly of the United Nations constitutes a weighty responsibility. It is often said that education is the great liberator, lifting people up the social ladder and strengthening society in the process. Not only is that assessment valid, it is a truism. I exemplify that pattern, having over the course of my career repeatedly found myself in places and called upon to undertake onerous responsibilities. Such experiences would not have seen the light of day had I not had great parents who appreciated the extraordinary power and potential of education, and moreover, having been part of a generation that benefited from an enlightened government policy that challenged and democratized the colonial practice, whereby education was, by state policy, reserved exclusively for the privileged, that is, only for those with the means to afford it. When, therefore, in the context of the SDGs, we postpone or neglect to offer support to the millions the world over who lack access to quality education, aren't we consigning them facelessly to an intergenerational cycle of poverty, degradation, and misery, from which they are hardly likely to emerge? It seems to me that the more pragmatic choice would be to do all that we can materially to save those children and young people from near certain defeat of circumstance, by affording them, through education, the option of choice, and thus the capacity to self-actualize to their own benefit and to that of their communities and societies. I find this to be a compelling argument for an all-out effort, come the forthcoming SDG Summit, to recommit and re-energize action to complete and deliver Agenda 2030 and the SDGs, the empowerment of people everywhere through the removal of the shackles that constrain their growth and independence and deny them any possibility of creating their own success. The pursuit of policies that support and encourage investing in people, and therefore in the creation of social capital in the medium and long term, is arguably among the most effective strategies for promoting and achieving sustainable development. It is education that brought me to this place and ultimately to this podium, and I am so proud and gratified to have been born in a country, Trinidad and Tobago, that for almost 70 years has ascribed the highest value to education. Allow me, therefore, to express my profound appreciation to my minister, Senator the Honorable Dr. Amory Brown, and through him to the government and people of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, for believing me worthy of shouldering this awesome responsibility as President of the 78th session of the General Assembly. Over the 40-odd years of my career as a diplomat, it never once occurred to me that I would find myself sitting as the President of the General Assembly. But as I look back, it was my good fortune to have been schooled by some of the finest and most accomplished diplomats Trinidad and Tobago has ever produced. Foremost among them being the late Mr. Lennox Fitzroy Balla, former head of the Foreign Service of Trinidad and Tobago, a brilliant international lawyer, and a former member of the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea, who tutored and indeed mentored several generations of professional Foreign Service officers, insisting always that the target must be excellence. I pay tribute to him and to several other distinguished masters of diplomacy whose dedication and work have left an indelible mark on Trinidad and Tobago. I am ever conscious of the sensitivity and weight of responsibility that serving as the President of the General Assembly imposes on the incumbent. In this regard, I commit to discharge the responsibilities of the office with transparency, accountability, vigor, and dedication, bearing in mind that all members have equal rights. On Trinidad and Tobago's admittance to the United Nations in 1962, Sir Ellis Clark, our first permanent representative, in making a comparison between our population and that of the international community, affirmed that we have, however, developed in our society tolerance, camaraderie, respect for the rights of others, and unswerving opposition to oppression, injustice, and racial discrimination, a love of liberty, a supreme faith in the dignity and worth of the human person, and belief in the value of cooperation. These principles will form the basis of my actions as President of the General Assembly. I will prioritize encouraging and facilitating meaningful dialogue in various formats in order to ensure that there is clarity of priorities and the strengthening of common purpose in the interests of coherence. It is my hope to bring forward, with your help and support, a renewed atmosphere of conciliation, cooperation, and shared commitment in addressing the many challenges and seizing every opportunity, however nascent, before the General Assembly. I will seek to enhance current approaches and adopt new ones with probable solutions as we endeavor to deliver, or at least to strengthen the bases for delivering peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability. I count on your support during the impending session and call for your fulsome engagement in good faith as we purposefully accelerate our action towards the achievement of the sustainable development for the benefit of all.
Are they yours? Ngabukela ke wash umkhukhu every Sunday at 3 p.m.
Sasifike emaphethelweni elihlelo lethu lalamuhla sithemba ngalo lomuhla ukuthi ufundzele okuningi kuloku besikuphathele kona lo muhla.
Yakunjalo mbukeli isolo nje siyachubeka sibambisana nebakathi license solo siyeni ukhuthatha ukuthi niubhadale lo yomthelo wabo mabona kuze lokbalekile nje ukuthi solo seba usukumisela umsebenzi wabo exercise yabo ukuthi bashayele sive kufuna nje imininingwane yaso besikhulumisana ke naye ephumelele Dlamini wakathi license atochazele ukuthi lo exercise isebenza kanjani uvedile ke ukuthi labakufuna konje imininingwane yakho elofaka khathi ID kanye ne device yakho ayithenga nini usakhona yini ukuchubeka kuyibhadala ekakhulu kwati nje lokuba kwendela ukuthi bakhona uku-update i-database yabo kepha ke lokuvelile ukuthi labanye vele ababathembi noma ke ababakholwa ukuthi vele bashaya ka-TV license kapheka inombolo dabo yatfolakala naka social media kuqinisekisa ukuthi vele ushayelwa ngibo.
Kazi-ke yena Xolani Mkhabela waka-IDCE usichazele nje kabanti nge-agricultural products loan yabo laba operationa wona eMaswati ekutheni yakhona kulima angakhali kakhulu ngokuthi edede imali bakhona bona ukuthi bavalele sosikhebesi leso sadota imali ngokuthi ke bakweluleke ukuthi ungalima diphi itilimo kuyiphi isizini sethembele ukuthi neyithethe inombolo yabo beyibhaliwe nje kumabona kuze cishe yonke le segment besihleli nabo lapha phasi inombolo yabo ke ukuthi batholakala kuphi lapha eDlanbeka 5th floor sokuthi maswahlamahle nitawubathinza nithole lo sitolo otherwise sifike egcineni ke uhlelo lethu la namuhla nisale kahle.
Mbukele senguye futhi lesithatha sikubisele sikwemukele eluhlelweni tasePhalamende sesemba siliviki lakho solo likuphethe kahle singena kuyo inyanga lensha inyanga yabo babe nayo inyanga yebantfana. Mbukele ke libito lami ngisamkelisiwe ngwakakhoza nginaye Mbongwadube kanzi mbukele lomuhla ehlelweni salapha endlini yaba esikhulu lapho khona sihlalo likomiti libuke kusebenza kwelitiko letemfundo nececesha khona endlini yaba esikhulu phinza belunga lePhalamende lenkundla seshiselweni 2 Straight Mbanza atwethula lendlu lohloniphekile umbiko ngalo liphenyo lalelikomiti ngako kusebenza kwenyuvesi kakhulu kati yona inhlangano etisebenzisa enyuvesi inawuche kanzi losihlalo wesekelo lelunga lePhalamende lenkundla yagege kulesishukumiso lesithi indlu yaba esikhulu cela mane yemukele lo mbiko walo lelikomiti.
Angibonga mqondisi nendlu ehloniphekile angicale mqondisi ngokubonga nje ukuthi sethenjwa indlu ukuthi siyokwenza nangomsebenzi mqondisi obaluleke njengeminye imisebenzi mhlawumbe speaker it suffices for me as a chair to humbly apologize to the entire House for having heard this report. Ithathe isikhathana mqondisi ingaphumi